Good morning, everyone. And today in the classroom, we're going to be breaking down is thinking good or bad? Have you ever struggled with internal thought loops or just suffering from our own thoughts? It's an interesting bit of a complicated, misunderstood topic. I've been diving into this as I want to learn a lot more about my thought patterns, when I identify them, when I don't. What does it mean? You hear these monks, Buddhists, whether it's like philosophical, psychological, or Eastern teachings on like we are not our thoughts. What the heck does that even mean? We're going to break down some pros and some cons on our thinking patterns and thoughts in general, why it's good for us, how it can be bad. So hopefully we can raise that awareness to suffer less and enjoy more. Cheers, friends. Thinking and thoughts on this morning's show. Cheers. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Talk Taryn Morning Show, where we go over tips, tricks, ideas, and exercises to help make you the absolute best person you can be, not only for yourself, but for the people you love and care about most. All about love here, folks, and we're breaking down in the classroom. We're talking about our thoughts, good or bad? Thinking, thoughts, are these good for us? Are they bad for us? And of course, I think we're going to let the different stages, environmental influences. There's a lot that goes into this stuff. So I think the best approach is we're going to start with a list of pros on thinking and thoughts and how we can maybe try and lean into these parts of thinking. And then also we're going to go over some cons just to try and raise some awareness. The most powerful, the first step of all, just raising awareness to maybe I'm doing this thought pattern. Maybe I'm kind of trapped in this negative thought loop. Maybe I'm identifying with this thought a little too much, and it's causing me a bunch of suffering. I know personally, when it comes to suffering, I usually suffer from, it's just like this. You can have these consistent thoughts, and it's really not even that big of a range of thoughts versus just the same negative ones over and over and over again. But before we get into this, I'm going to just get my headphones and my microphone ready. How's everyone doing this morning? Doing good this morning? Maybe you're getting some coffee. Maybe you're getting your journaling stuff out. I've been liking this AnchorWorks microphone quite a bit. It works pretty good. Just clips onto your shirt. I'm actually rocking a Talk to Tanner shirt this morning instead of my normal black uniform. Didn't really feel like dressing up. Okay, my AirPods. Let me make sure my settings are good. Okay. All right. Good morning. Test. Good morning, everyone. We are going to be diving into thoughts, thinking and thoughts. All right, we're good to go. Cool. I got to have a special microphone because when I go to turn around and I'm working on the chalkboard and stuff, it muffles the mic and all this kind of stuff. So yada, yada. But anyway, so this is episode number 499. Holy crap, folks. Tomorrow's episode 500, and we're going to do a little bit of celebrating. How do we celebrate and kind of going over milestones and that kind of stuff. So make sure to tune in tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time for episode 500. It's going to be a really fun one, a fun Friday. But today we got some work to do. We're talking about thinking and thoughts. How can something create so much innovation, create the beautiful world that we have today, but how can something be paralyzing to the point to where we need to see therapists? We just can't function. We go off these bad habit trains, turn to substances, and thoughts can be such an influential part. It's really crazy how thoughts can drive us, especially when we identify with them. And we're going to talk a lot about some key words this morning, this idea of detachment. A lot of the times our suffering just comes from this attachment to the thoughts. I got this going on at work. I don't know what's going on. This is wrong, or that's wrong. And you're just like living in it. And then what's happening? Your stress is going up, cortisol. It's literally changing the chemistry within our bodies. The thoughts are. And this is a protective mechanism. But let's start with some pros. Like maybe we'll go back and forth. I kind of like that when we do one pro, one con, back and forth like that. So we're gonna try and run back and forth like this. All right, perfect. So in my notes, I was taking a lot of notes this morning trying to read, and I was like, how do I even put that into words? But so first pro of thinking. So when it comes to thinking, I would think the first pro is problem solving. Problem What problems can you solve today? Maybe you sit down and you do some reflection. One of the great benefits of the human mind and the ability is to just look at what resources, what's going on, what's the best decision I can make right here, right now with the resources that I have. That's really that. I mean, can you be hard on somebody who's just trying to make the best decision they can with the resources they have? And a lot of this comes from thinking. Incredible, right? So that's the first pro is problem solving. When we have diseases, when we have businesses to build, machines, all of these things that have created the beautiful life here in 2024, here in America specifically, being able to problem solve has been a huge part of that. So first con, I would say, is rumination, overthinking. Rumination, overthinking. And I put this one number one because, man, it is number one for me. Rumination and overthinking. Really, we can break this down looking over at some of our notes. Excessive rumination or negative thoughts or worries can lead to anxiety, stress, and emotional distress. So we just kind of have the same thought over and over and over and over again. It can really put a lot of pressure. You can feel that anxiety, that tightness in your chest and your shoulders and your neck. You're like just all riled up. But rumination is really just this persistence of the negative thinking patterns, such as people being like criticizing themselves, dwelling on past failures, fuel depression and other mental health issues. Rumination keeps us stuck in unproductive thought loops. So rumination and overthinking is really just, we've heard bad news and we can't get our mind off of it. And we're just perpetuating it. And this is the stuff that really causes like consistent long periods of suffering that are bad and unhealthy. So rumination and overthinking would definitely be the first con. All right, on to the next pro. That would be, excuse me, what is one of the pros of thinking? It'd be decision making. This decision making has gotten very tough because we have here in America specifically, we have a lot of options. You can work this career. You can work that career. You can go to the bowling alley. You can go to the movies. You can start this hobby. You can start painting. You can write a book. There's so many options. But decision making, I still put it on pro because having choice, and when you know your values, you understand your purpose, the direction that we want to have, we have a bit of a roadmap. If you want to talk to Tanner and create a one-page life plan, highly recommend it. But it just to help with decision making. But what a powerful tool, the power of choice. So when it comes to thinking and thoughts, this would be one of the pros, right? Is just being able to make decisions. So what good decisions can you make today? Maybe it's the food that you put in your body. Maybe you make a decision to work out. Maybe you make a decision to make a couple extra sales calls and try to make some money for the family. Some dinero, but decision making comes in as our second pro. Good morning this morning. Thanks for tuning in. We're talking about thinking and thoughts and how it causes suffering, but also beautiful innovation in the world. The good and the bad of thinking and thoughts. All right. The next one on our cons list would be cognitive biases. So biases. Cognitive biases. And really, under this one, these are just, we get influenced by our biases, such as confirmation bias, or I like to call it catastrophizing. So we can have a bias. We read one article in the news about vaccines, political parties, wars in the world. And people will literally take it. Humans love predicting. We love patterns and we love predicting. And we'll take these biases and we'll say, I'll have this little smidget nugget of evidence and I will run with that till the cows come home, explode it all out. And I think this is one of the cons is it's good for envisioning and problem solving. And I get that. But what really, we can be super biased to our own situations, our own family members, our own values, and a lot of that. And then we can condemn, even toss venom and hate and a lot of this icky, nasty stuff off of these cognitive biases. So be very careful of these. It's like just irrational beliefs and behaviors. These biases can contribute to misunderstandings, conflict, and poor decision making. So be very careful of these biases. Are you being biased about a situation? Have you given both parties a chance, thought on both sides of it? Have we had a little bit of compassion and put ourselves in their shoes? But this would be the second con, would be cognitive bias. So rumination and overthinking things way too much, having these consistent pattern. We tell ourselves stories. We have these limiting beliefs and just these bullshit narratives that just drive us absolutely insane. So we got to be careful of these rumination and overthinking and cognitive biases. This is my background, so this is how it always is. This is what it is. Be very careful of this thinking. We want to be a little more open-minded and a little more compassionate. Awesome. All right. Our next one on to our why thoughts are good. Going back to the pros, folks. We're back and forth. We're all over the place. The third pro for thinking and thoughts would be creativity, being creative. Shout out to my sister's boyfriend, Tyler. He just sent me this message saying like art is just you creating something that like wasn't there before. And it's like a really beautiful thing. And I think being creative and creating things, I've always had a weird opinion on, I think, limiting beliefs for myself on art. I'm not good enough, this and that. But being creative is one of the just most beautiful things about our thinking, our thoughts, our mind, our consciousness is just think of the art and the beauty that we've really been able to bring to the world by thinking things out, seeing it and feeling it and creating a whole clusterfuck between culture and colors and just a bunch of stuff. Being creative is one of the coolest things for humans and definitely comes in at a pro. So that on to cons now. The third would be this word attachment. Attachment. And this has caused a whole lot of suffering. It'll be the root of suffering and it will continue to be the root of suffering for a long, long time. This idea of attachment, you've probably heard of this word in like Eastern philosophy, just old pieces of literature, even now talking about it more and more in practices. And I think it's being more accepted, which acceptance is awesome. But attachment to our thoughts is really what drive us crazy. So you have, say if something's wrong with your skin, and then you have this thought of my skin is not good enough, I am ugly, I don't look good. And if you attach yourself to that, this stuff will absolutely drive us crazy. The attachment to these beliefs, the attachment. And so how do you not attach? Oh, they're like, all right, Tanner, that's fine. I get it. I've heard your talk on free will and we can't control. We can influence our thoughts on things like environment, experience, but there's really, have you ever had a random thought about somebody in the past 10 years ago? And you're like, why the hell did I even think that? There's a level of lack of free will in this equation. So giving us some grace, and maybe you've heard of this term, I think is really powerful. So we have our first power term over here is detachment, but I would say observing. Observer. They talk about the observer a lot in Eastern philosophy and techniques and teachings. So just trying to be an observer and understanding we are not attached to thoughts. Thinking of thoughts like the weather. We can't control it and it comes and it goes. I will continue to use this metaphor because it works really well for me, but I think everyone needs to come up with something that works a little well for them. So I have had in the past a lot of attachment. I think this is really common for males. I would say females too. I've met some crazy girls who are like really power hungry and want to go get in business just as much as men, if not more. So it's really just depending on the personality of the person, I suppose. But attachment is when like we're really grabbing towards this idea of I need to be at this status and this accomplishment and achieve these things, or else I'm not good enough. Or attachment to anything, the weather, this attaching to this thought of it's cloudy and gray outside, so I can't be happy unless it's sunny. Like this absence and this gap between reality and expectations. We got to be very careful of how attachment comes into this and realize that we're doing the suffering ourselves. That's really the main driver I wanted to get down on the show, is being very careful of the things that we attach ourselves to, whether it's our thoughts, it's our thinking. This stuff comes and goes like the weather. It comes out of left field. It comes out of right field. A lot of it we can't even control. So really trying to use another power word that we're going to put over here is some compassion, please. Compassion. If we could just be a little nicer to ourselves, we probably wouldn't be pissed off all the time. Go figure. And this is something I'm really trying to implement myself. I still do it all the time. I still become attached. I'm still a little biased. I still ruminate. This is going to happen. But like we like to use this example on the show, I'm never going to run a marathon in 0 minutes and 0 seconds. But I can reduce my time and get excited about the power of the mind. Let's finish up with another pro on here. We got to finish with something good. Okay. We'll throw a couple more pros on here because I'm a positive guy. My glass is overflowing with optimism this morning. I hope you guys are too. Getting excited for the day. It's going to be a great day. But another pro for thinking would definitely be learning. Imagine if you couldn't learn. If you couldn't take in information and you couldn't learn, if you couldn't learn about what you were interested. Aristotle talks so much in his writings that I've been reading is just the power and the feel-good energy we get from taking in new information. What's more exciting than learning and growing on topics that you really give a shit about? It's really, really fun. I think it's fun. I think it's fantastic. There's really nothing better. And the last one is communication. Imagine if we couldn't communicate with our loved ones. Communication. Communication. Being able to communicate with the people we love and care about most. This is very powerful. This is life would be so boring if I couldn't just articulate, read these cool books, do these writings, work on my business, and then share it with the world. How do we even do business? How do we do these? How do we problem solve with other people? How do we make decisions that include other people? How are we like learning and doing all this with each other when we can't communicate? So it's really cool to see all these pros of thinking. What a powerful like system we have going on. There's so many moving parts, and it's really an awesome system, thinking and thoughts. But it's like there's no good. There's nothing that's amazingly and completely good without bad. And these cons, the rumination, the biases, and the attachment, they really can just eat your soul alive. They will drain your energy. It will take you to the brink. And people will do this over and over and over and over again. And we just want to raise awareness to it and tell that inner bully. So I believe we all have these inner critics, these inner bullies in ourselves. I think it's a bit hardwired for survival purposes because you do need to improve and you need to get better. And our evolution a little screwed up a little bit on this being so hard on ourselves because discomfort usually causes people to change. Tony Robbins is famously coined for talking about like once the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of change, you will change. That's why people take their hand off the stove when it gets too hot. And it's like that's just too much. So the cons of thinking are there. We just want to give attention to them. We want to detach from our thoughts. These are tools and they're helpful. It's like the hammer and the saw and all this stuff that we got that helps us work on our properties. These are tools, but I am not these tools. Like they're helpful and I want to use them. But just because something goes wrong or breaks or this and that, it's like, that's not on me. Just like this attachment and using this kind of observer approach. I was reading this book called The Superior Man that I really liked. And he was talking about just thinking of where the source of where your focus is coming from. Really take a moment to just be completely in the present moment and think, like, just feel yourself on like where all this is coming from. And if you do focus on it for just even a minute, you breathe for a couple minutes and like just really think of where the source is coming from your consciousness and kind of just feel that energy. I can't put this crap into words. It's nuts, but it's really so powerful, and we can be the observer, kind of taking a step back and viewing yourself, taking a step back and viewing the thoughts and the thinking. Is like, I am not this. That's okay. We all have positive thoughts. We all have negative thoughts. That's how our brain works. It's just got to keep firing to keep working. So be the observer and just having a little more compassion, the sense that we can't control all of our thoughts. We're going to have negative thoughts, but when you don't let them have the power, when you don't let the negative thought loops have the power, when you don't let the overthinking control you, when you don't let the rumination, the biases, and the attachment control us, it starts to fade. It doesn't come back. The things that we focus on are the things that we truly feel in our bodies. And I'm really trying to do my best to improve this ability to detach, observe, and just have some compassion for myself. Because, man, being human they talk about life is suffering and all this stuff. And it's true. And it's part of it. But I think if we can be completely in the present, it's going to make it that much easier. I'm going to end all of this with this last little note that that I had off of this podcast that I really liked. So, shoot, I have my notes right here. Yep. Depression is living in the past. Anxiety is living in the future. And peace is living in the present. If we can come back to the present moment, if we can detach and observe and have some compassion, I think we can make life better. And leading by example with this, like, just because it's raining doesn't mean I need to be sad. The weather example really hits with me because I used to really get bothered by the weather, but I've been doing a really good job of like, I don't need good weather to be happy. Like, I don't need it. Once I learned I don't need happiness, I started having it and just did what is. Acceptance, presence, all this stuff is super beautiful, but the mind is complex. Putting this stuff into word is communicating this. One of the things, the power of the pros of the mind, it's tough to do. And maybe words just don't do it justice. Maybe we don't need an explanation for everything. Maybe we can just be, and it'll feel a whole lot better. Cheers, friends. That's all I have for this morning. Is thinking good or bad? We went over some pros, we went over some cons, and we went over some power words to hopefully help you recognize these negative thought patterns and give yourself some compassion and some grace as we go through the day. But man, look at those pros. See how you can apply them today. How can you apply problem solving, decision making, creative work, and learning communication to help improve your quality of life and the ones you love and care about most? Awesome, folks. This was episode 499. I'm coming at you with number 500 bright and early tomorrow morning. We're going to be celebrating a little bit. It's going to be a good time for episode 500. But cheers to you all. Have an awesome, awesome day. In case you need to hear it, I love you. You're a badass. You got this. Let's use our thinking to help us and not hurt us, and have an awesome, awesome day. Cheers, folks. Peace out.